Hello and welcome back to another Blu-ray discussion. This time I want to talk about a recent release from Eureka, a Masters of Cinema title. My brain just malfunctioned there. You saw it in real time. That is Spy number 304 in the overall collection. Came out a couple of months ago, and I worked my way through it with such joy and I don't know, excitement that I've kind of been overthinking how I make a video about it, and I do want to make an in-depth, like, proper Blu-ray review of this. And I'm really going to hold myself to try and do it because I think this release is worth it. But I just know that, again, there's just so many other things that I'm kind of doing at the moment. So I just want to make a video about it and give an overview of the thing. Will anyone really want to hear me talk about this for like an hour and 20 minutes? I don't know. So I'll just make a brief kind of discussion video of it right now, just to really highlight how great this set is and why I loved it so much. I think the reason I loved it so much is because I wasn't really that excited about it when it was announced. I was excited about it in the sense that it's a new MOC release. I was excited about it in the sense that it's something I haven't seen before, had no real knowledge of. But the fact that I didn't really have any familiarity with this director who this set is focused on meant I had no real kind of, any kind of preconceived ideas of what it was going to entail. And knowing it was kind of like his early career, and I kind of thought, well, a lot of famous directors, their early career, if they're quite prolific, is not usually something that's particularly like, amazing or anything. It's kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Like their first steps, you can kind of see some of the threads that would kind of carry on to their kind of bigger, more successful films later on in their career, which I'd never even seen to begin with. So I went into this one kind of a little bit cautious and just loved like every film in this set. So it is Sirk in Germany, 1934 to 1935. This is the works of German filmmaker Douglas Sirk, or Detlef Sirk, and I'd only really heard of his name before in relation to Hollywood movies, so I assumed he was a Hollywood director, but he is a German director. And I really like this image here. It's from the film The Girl from Marshcroft, and it's just a really arresting image, I think, and I just love the title treatment. And I really just like the yellow banner as well, which has all of the films, I believe, in their original German language, so you can kind of get a nice look at that there. I don't know, something about the layout is really nice, the color of the font and everything. It's a nice cover design, I think, and just the bold Sirk in Germany on the spine there, which I'll try and get a bit of a... There you go. I just think that's really nice. It looks nice on the shelf. And kind of makes me wish there's another volume coming that you could put next to it, I need to check and see if is there a spine number 305 in the collection. That's interesting. Oh, that's got me interested now. Is there going to be a 305, or have we already had it? I don't know if we've already had it or not. Ooh, I can't tell based on some of the ones I have over there. So, but that'd be fun if there was a 305 that is another Douglas Sirk set that will fit nicely there with the yellow banner on the bottom. I don't know. There's these things I think about. So this is the back of the Blu-ray here with the description of what it entails. It is a 2-disc set, has the credits for all the films there, and some of the extras contained within. This contains 6 films, as you can see by the 6 rounds of credits. There are 3 shorts and 3 feature films. There is 2 Greyhounds, The Imaginary Invalid, 3 Times Before, April, The Girl from Marshcroft, and Pillars of Society. These are HD restorations, presentations from new restorations, I should say. And the O-card slipcase design is by Scott Saslow, if that's how you pronounce his name. I like it. I really do enjoy the way this one looks. It's very nice, I think. And I'll give you one last look here at the cover in close-up, and just read the copy from the back, because I think it kind of summarizes better than I could. An undisputed master of melodrama, director Douglas Sirk is best known for the lavish, sweeping romances he made during the last decade of his career, including Magnificent Obsession, All That Heaven Allows, Written on the Wind, and Imitation of Life. But by the time Sirk, born Hans Detlef Sirk, arrived in Hollywood, he had already made several films in his native Germany. The Masters of Cinema series is honored to present this collection of Sirk's earliest films, all of which established a blueprint for his later work. So I want to talk about the short films first, and my experience with them. So Three Times Before, which is presented in two different versions, which I found absolutely fascinating. And I believe it was actually produced in this way because there was a sound version and a silent version, but the sound version no longer exists. So I'm not entirely sure of how this came about for the Blu-ray, whether they took the silent version. No, because that wouldn't work either. I think they are two different versions, but the sound one doesn't have the soundtrack on it. So what they've done is, I think they used documentation to find the dialogue, and so the sound version is presented with subtitles. So I watched the silent version first, which is a whole kind of silent experience. It is a silent short film with intertitles, at kind of various points. And I quite enjoyed it. So it's an interesting little kind of, I don't know what you'd really call it, as a kind of a story. It's kind of different versions of the same event presented through different perspectives. A man comes home and his wife is there entertaining guests, and he's a little bit miffed that there are guests there. And they have a bit of an argument and decide they're getting divorced, and they go to their kind of like a marriage counselor kind of thing, and they're like, well, this is what happened, and you see what happened but through his perspective and then her perspective, and then the kind of the counselor is kind of like, well, here's how it should have happened. And from there, kind of an understanding is formed, and it's very funny. There's even a moment where they run the footage back in reverse, like, no, let's go back a second, that's not how I remember it. I really like that stuff. So it's kind of about memory and perception and that kind of thing, and it's very fun. It's quite funny, and I really enjoyed it. But the sound version, which has no sound, then is subtitled, and it just was like a wow, like it just makes you realize how much you actually miss when you're watching silent films. Now, I'm a big silent film fan. I've watched so many of them, and I'm fine with silent films. I can watch a 3-hour silent film and get along just fine, and I can kind of almost fill in the pieces and the gaps of where like dialogue is going on, but there's not a lot of intertitles to tell you what the characters are saying. You kind of infer from body language and performance these things. And the same can be said for Three Times Before when I watched the silent version. But seeing it with subtitles, it's like there's so much more that you're missing out on. It was really an eye-opener for me, and really enjoyable in that respect. So I really enjoyed seeing just the difference, and obviously you have more kind of you have more screen time in the sound version, which has no sound, but I think it's shorter because it doesn't have the gaps with the intertitles. But I just thought it was fascinating. I really, really enjoyed the experience of seeing both versions and watching them back to back. But it's also a fun little film, that kind of perspective and things as well. Then there is The Two Greyhounds, which is just gut-bustingly hilarious. I absolutely loved it. It's about this guy who waltzes into this kind of job interview. And the boss leaves, and he kind of, I think he sits down at the desk, and then another interviewee comes in and assumes that he's the boss. So it just extrapolates from there, where these two guys who are both going for the same job, and there's so many kind of misconstrued kind of intentions and crossed wires, and then they leave, and it just the kind of the way these events unfold, I thought was just absolutely hilarious, and it was just a super fun one. I really enjoyed The Two Greyhounds. And then the last one is The Imaginary Invalid, which I believe is set in like France in like the 1800s, I think. And so you have all these wigs and stuff, and kind of very elaborate kind of costumes and production design. It's about this guy who's kind of a lord, or something, kind of a guy in a little bit of power, and he's a complete hypochondriac. And there's this kind of specialist, kind of a medical specialist, who's just like, he's taken so much advantage of this guy's hypochondria and health anxiety that he's like, oh, well, you're gonna need this pill, and you might have this disease. You need to kind of take this cream and whatever. And he's just like fleecing the guy and taking advantage of him. And as someone who is like a big hypochondriac myself, it was rather amusing to see kind of someone like me get poked fun at to that degree. And there's another one I really enjoyed. And so at this point, I'm like, wow, these are really funny. So I wonder how the feature films are going to play out. Are they going to be comedies too? I really didn't know. I wasn't sure. And I had the only real kind of inkling I had about Douglas Sirk was that melodrama was a word that was kind of bandied around a lot. So I was expecting something a bit more serious. And so I thought, well, maybe the feature films would be more serious. So we get to April, or April Fools. And I have to say, this film is incredible. Now, listening to the commentary for it and kind of seeing some of the context and the extras and things like that, it isn't one that's looked on as a particular kind of high point or anything, as a film or as a Douglas Sirk film, but it might be my favorite of the whole box set. I think there's just something about it that is so charming and sweet and fun. And it's another version of that kind of a story where people are kind of there's mistaken identities, and there's kind of crossed wires, and a comedy of errors. And it takes you back to the silent era where, like, if someone just would say, hey, here's what's going on, the whole story kind of falls apart. But someone doesn't, and then it just keeps going and going and going. What I loved about it was that it kept surprising me in different ways. So the story is about this really kind of uh, what's the right term for it? It's a family who kind of they want to be upper class, but they're not really upper class, and they're hosting this big party, and they're being very showy and stuff, and they love all the attention. But you can just tell immediately from this opening sequence that all the people who are attending this party, they still look down their nose at them anyway. So it's kind of a funny thing where they're trying to keep up appearances, and people aren't really buying into it and stuff, and you can tell that, but they can't tell that they don't tell that they can tell that. So it's kind of that's fun immediately. And then a man at the party's like, these fucking guys. He's like, I'm gonna play a trick on these guys now. April Fool's prank. So he leaves and he gets on the phone and he's like, oh yeah, the prince is gonna be arriving tomorrow, and he wants to kind of buy, some stuff from the family's business. And it's the guy, the kind of the male head of the family. He's just like, holy shit, the prince wants to make an order and stuff, and there's going to be a visit and everything. And the wife, she goes into like kind of like panic mode, like, the papers need to know for the morning press, like, get everyone out of here now, this is like the big deal. And of course it's just a prank. um and when the father of the family, he finds out that it's a prank, he's like, holy shit, but we put it in the paper now, we got to do something. Let's hire an actor to be the prince. Meanwhile, the prince himself is reading the paper going, oh, I'm supposed to be making a visit to this factory. Oh, I guess I'll just do that then. And you immediately get the sense that this prince is very unprecious about himself and his title and everything, and kind of just jovially decides to pay them a visit anyway. And so when he when he turns up and they think he's the actor, and then the and it's just like, oh my God, and it just keeps just building and building and building. And I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time, thinking how much more of a mess is this whole thing going to get into. And the guy who plays the real prince was just such a charming performer. He also appears in Pillars of Society. A really great actor, I thought. But the guy who played the father of the family was hilarious as well. Just this kind of flustering, bumbling kind of, I don't know, presence was brilliant. And I don't know, I had so much fun with it. And there's a romance subplot in there that I was really invested in. And maybe just the way that it kind of wrapped up rather quickly in the ending was the only thing I didn't like about the film. I thought, you could have done a bit more with that. Otherwise, I had such a blast with it. It was so funny. And then to go from April into the second feature film of the set, The Girl from Marshcroft. Now we're in melodrama, like, and I just thought, okay, wow, this is like Douglas Sirk. But I just loved the different flavors that we got to see and get to see in this box set. And the fact that these are his early films shows just some interesting promise that I'm assuming pays off, because his films are well renowned and regarded from the 50s and so on, when he went to Hollywood as well. So I'm intrigued to see more Douglas Sirk films for sure, and I'm very intrigued to see if the fact they've called this Sirk in Germany 1934 to 1935, whether or not same kind of situation of the Laurel and Hardy sets will get a second volume. That would be awesome. Anyway, as it goes, I want to tell this story very briefly. I went to bed, and I kind of had a really rough night at work, I think, and I went to bed early, and I woke up around, I think, 2:30, 3 in the morning. I saw, I'm just going to go watch a film. I never do this. I went downstairs and I put on The Girl from Marshcroft, and it was just the perfect film to watch at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what it was. And I love melodrama. Let me just say that. I like films that are a bit heightened in their kind of the drama and the almost like yeah, it takes on a different form. Um, and I don't know. Yeah, I guess I do love melodramas that are in English and audible, but like I like silent melodramas. There's something about those I find really involving, and this almost feels like a silent film to me, but it isn't. You know, it very much is. It is in German, and you can hear them speaking and everything, but it has the qualities of a silent film. I don't know in the visual form of it, and it's all this beautiful kind of scenery. And in the audio commentary, he goes into a lot about the Heimat film, which I knew nothing about going into this. And he kind of argues against it being one, and being one that kind of, you know, it is about kind of the Nazi view of Germany, and romanticizing kind of an agricultural way of life, I suppose, or kind of the natural beauty of Germany and things like that. And that's quite a complex thing to kind of think about. And I liked how he laid it out in the commentary, and does wrestle with some of those, you know, unfortunate realities of looking at German films from the 1930s is the rise of Nazi Germany, and thinking like, well, okay, so Fritz Lang and so other directors kind of fled Germany, you know, by the time the writing was on the wall. So with Douglas Sirk still hanging around in 1934, 1935, what's the story there? So you get a lot of that context in the commentaries, which were all done by the same guy. I guess I can just talk about that a bit as I'm on the subject. Was it Stephen something? New Order commentary? No, my apologies. New Order commentaries on all three of the feature films by Douglas Sirk expert David Melville Wingrove. I really enjoyed his commentaries. Unfortunately, you know, when you just like the glass, the glass, I'll leave that in for free. When the glass shatters and you notice something about someone's speech patterns and you just cannot unhear it. Yeah, so I would wager that he says in the, oh my God, David, was it? I'm so sorry. David Melville Wingrove. I'll just, David. David has a tendency to kind of link into like the next sentence by saying, and now, and it was always, so now, and it just, the and now kind of little affectation, it's probably in there about 300 times across all three commentaries, which is not criticism or anything. It just was one of those things that like you cannot unhear it, and then you're waiting for it, you know. And I don't know, when you listen to like loads of commentaries by the same person, you do tend to kind of find those little I don't know, idiosyncrasies, idiosyncrasies. Why is that bugging me? Holy shit. Idiosync something. Man, do you ever just feel like, like, am I getting Alzheimer's or something? Why is my brain not allowing me to latch onto that word? Idiosyncrasies. There it is. I got it. It was still in there somewhere. You do notice these idiosyncrasies in people when you listen to them a lot in audio commentaries. Anyway, so I just kept smirking every time it came up, which was a lot. But, and actually, and this is something I want to talk about when I fully review this set, because and I have a lot of notes as well. But I disagree with a lot of what he has to say in the commentaries, which I found just fun almost, because I was kind of like, well, I don't really agree with that. And I was thinking about my arguments against some of the things that he was saying. It was more about interpretations of the story and the characters, and yeah, but it was interesting. I enjoyed disagreeing with him, you know, which is a weird thing because it wasn't really like a conversation, but just listening, going, well, I don't quite agree with that. But he makes some good points here and there, and was pointing out lots of things that I found interesting. Kind of spoils, I think, some later Douglas Sirk films, although now, you know, some, you know, 2 to 3 weeks after going through this set, I can't remember any of those spoilers. Just remember thinking, oh, that's how, you know, that film ends, that famous Douglas Sirk film, Imitation of Life. It ends with this or whatever, but I've already forgotten, so I guess it's not even that big of a deal. Very good commentaries, and again, he goes into like, well, that actor, you know, was linked to Nazi Germany, or that actor, you know, kind of, you know, rebelled against it and stuff. And so there's moments of like, oh man, what a prick, you know. And then there's also moments of, fuck yeah, what a legend. The fact that he kind of stood up for that, and like one of the actors, I think in April was a comedian who would kind of actually go into things about kind of the regime and things. You just think like, yeah, fucking A. Anyway, so I really enjoyed the commentaries a lot, and they gave a lot of interesting insight into the films and also the the climate of the times. Really, really great commentaries. Anyway, The Girl from Marshcroft. It's about this girl who's a farmer, and she's a farmer's daughter, and she's looking for, well, no, she isn't looking for work. She gets poached for work by a guy who needs a kind of farmhand and a maid on his family farm, and he's captivated by this woman who's there in town, but she's not there to be kind of hired. She's there to appear essentially in front of court. There's like a small kind of rural court in this building, and he goes along to see what her case is. And she basically was working for a man, and then she became pregnant with his child, and he's now kind of disowned her and everything, and she's kind of looking for some justice and stands up for her case, and that kind of really impresses our lead character, who ends up hiring her, and he's already engaged to be married to someone else, but he kind of falls in love with her, and it's this kind of typical kind of, again, melodramatic kind of romance tale, and it's about kind of the morality of relationships and things, and you have this kind of character who's really interesting, who's kind of commenting on things as we go along. I forget what the term I think David used in the commentaries was, he's the Greek chorus. I don't really know what the Greek chorus is per se, but I kind of get what he means, and I can kind of, I'm sure I kind of understand what he means by that. But it's a character who's kind of almost a witness to the story, and he's a part of the story, a living, breathing part of it. But he's also kind of almost a magical figure who is just kind of commenting on the morality of the actions of the characters and things. But I really like the lead actress who you see on the front cover there, who plays the girl from Marshcroft. And as a melodrama, it really satisfied me, and I really enjoyed it, and I loved some of the choices that he made. And one thing I noticed, I can't remember which one it was now, but I think in every film but one on the box set, there's a linking shot that Sirk uses where he follows characters' feet. And you see it in 3 Times Before, when the married couple are bickering and they decide to go and get divorced, and we follow their feet looking down, leaving their house, and then we cut to the stairs in the building where the marriage counseling is, and we see their feet run up, and so it's kind of a linking shot of them going to different locations, and the camera shows the feet. I really just love that kind of linking device visually. And even later on in Pillars of Society, there's some interesting stuff where he's cutting on movement. Like a character's dancing in one scene, and we move to another scene, and they're moving, and I love match cutting, and using movement to kind of transition between scenes is an interesting way of doing things in the way that you can only do in a film. Anyway, that's just kind of a random aside, but I really love the cinematography and The Girl from Marshcroft, and the performances. That's one thing I disagreed with David on, actually. He said that the lead actor in Marshcroft is arguably the worst actor in the film, and doesn't do a very good job. But I really liked him. I didn't think he was great or anything, but I think he served his purpose, and I don't know, the lead actress does a lot of the heavy lifting, I would say, but I don't know. I really love that film. I don't know. It's actually tough to decide between that or April. April is just pure entertainment for me. But The Girl from Marshcroft, I think, is a better crafted film and story. So maybe that's the best one, and I just enjoy April a little bit more. I don't know. I need to rewatch them. And then finally we have The Pillars of Society. I think it's just called Pillars of Society. Does it say on the back here? Where would it be? Yeah, just Pillars of Society. Now, where is the actor's name? Heinrich George. I should have read some of the actors' names from the other films. I apologize. But yeah, Heinrich George, he plays the consul of this Norwegian town in Pillars of Society. And he's kind of the figurehead, the pillar of their society. And he wants to build this shipyard, but the fishermen are kind of against it because it's going to interfere with their kind of livelihoods and things like that. And then a relative of his brother-in-law, I believe, is returning to Norway after 20 years away, and this stirs up a lot of previous baggage and things like that. And it's to do with this kind of power play of the town, and also to do with you know, the family drama very much exploding. And I really enjoyed this one, and the actor Heinrich George, I was like, man, this guy he has such a kind of, well, an on-screen presence, but like, I can't really describe it. I don't know. He just kind of, a very large man, but he just has a command of the screen, I think. I don't know. He's captivating to watch. And I believe, I don't want to say, I can't remember. This is something I have in my notes somewhere. So again, I'm sorry that I feel like I'm not as well prepared for this as I should be, because I have all my notes for like the in-depth video. I mean, I've been filming now for about half an hour, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. So I feel like the full review will probably be around like 70 to 90 minutes, which is why I didn't bring my notes out, to kind of be quick. But I don't know. This actor, at first, he seemed familiar, and then I learned that he was in Metropolis. So of course I recognize him. He's the head of the workers of the city, and is part of that incredible final shot of Metropolis, just one of the all-time masterpieces of cinema. So that's how I recognized him. But he just, I don't know, he makes the film for me. And I don't know, I want to find out the actor's name who plays the brother-in-law too. He should be on here. Yes, Johan Turnesson. Albrecht Schönhals. That's probably an awful way to pronounce it. But yeah, he kind of returns home to Norway, and kind of some home truths come out, and it threatens the consuls kind of standing in the community, and he is not happy about that. And so the kind of Pillars of Society is a great title for this. I really enjoyed it. Some really good performers in there, I thought, and an interesting setting in Norway. And I really liked, there's a scene where the Turnesson, when he's coming back to Norway after 20 years, there's just a shot of like a boat. And I believe that they filmed some of that stuff in Denmark, so there's no actual photography in Norway, but there's a lifeboat with Trondheim on it, which is interesting because I lived in Trondheim for many years, and so it's kind of a fun little like Norwegian Easter egg there for me. Oh, Trondheim. And again, interesting that they had that on there, because I don't know whether that was a detail they put in, or whether it was just random if they were filming in Denmark. Maybe it was a Danish ship that had a lifeboat with Trondheim on it. I really don't know. This one gets really melodramatic towards the end, to the point where I was kind of like, oh, okay. But I enjoyed it a lot. And I loved all the films. I really, really did. And there's an interesting flavor of stuff there. And you see him very quickly move into the melodramatic side of things. But there's still a bit of humor and lightness to the thing as well. And to the other two feature films I talked about. But you do see that very steep transition, I think, because April is an out-and-out comedy. The Girl from Marshcroft is undoubtedly a melodrama, with a bit of levity, but not much. And then Pillars of Society has its fun too, but it gets very serious towards the end. And so, yeah, it's just, even in just these 2 years, 1934, 1935, you see a transition, you see a growth, I think, from those short films to the feature films and how they progress. So I loved the set. I've already talked about the commentaries. There's also a piece by Sheldon Hall, I believe. Is that the right name? I always have to check these things. There's just so many names that I'm thinking about and looking at and reading and hearing things from on all these Blu-rays. Yes, Sheldon Hall. And it's called Magnificent Obsessions, Sheldon Hall on Douglas Sirk. It's a 20-minute piece, and he talks about Douglas Sirk's career as a whole, and kind of summarizes it rather nicely. And I heard some things I didn't hear in the commentaries, and then he kind of talks about the three feature films briefly. I really enjoyed that, and I've already showed you kind of the artwork and stuff, and the inside of the. No, I haven't shown you the inside. What am I talking about? Let's show you that now. There you go. That's still there from Pillars of Society. I read some criticisms that this cover was lazy. I don't particularly think it is. I think that, I don't know, just kind of the color tone of it feels kind of nice and vintage, and appropriately old. I don't know. I think that the quality of the slipcover image is strong enough. And then on the inside, we have an image of the lead actress from The Girl from Marshcroft, which is nice. My disc hub is still broken on this. I tried to replace it with another one, but these are very specific holders, so I need to try and find a way to get a different one. So the film. Oh, there's also a shot here from the Pillars of Society, and it's Turnerson, I believe. So there's 2 discs, and one of them is currently in another case because of the broken disc hub. But I can at least show you the the disc for the artwork for disc 1, which is the from April, and you have the father there, who's a very fun character. I think this is him on the phone getting the call that the prince is coming to visit. It's just brilliant. And then we have a very nice booklet. Another image from The Girl from Marshcroft. On the back, we have Heinrich George in Pillars of Society. And this one has information about all of the films, which is very nice. Sorry for the glare. I'm apologizing a lot in this video, aren't I? The Imaginary Invalid. It's hard to kind of flip the pages when I'm holding it like that 3 times before. With the German titles as well. April Fool is the English title for this one. But April is the German title. And then we have, I love the way that David said the title for The Girl from Marshcroft. Das Mädchen vom Moorhof. He would say that title a lot in the commentary, and it was quite pleasing to hear. The Girl from Marshcroft, 1935. I like having all these, the cast listings and everything, and a nice image. Pillars of Society, 1935. Very nice. And then we have Douglas Sirk, The Making of an Auteur by Tim Bergfelder, which is a very nice essay about Douglas Sirk. And I love directors' collections. There's just something about them. I've talked about this before. Invariably this comes up again and again, but just, I don't know, it's something really satisfying about getting to see a director's work kind of evolve throughout a number of films, and so I really do hope we get another volume, because I'd love to kind of continue the journey with Douglas Sirk, I have to say. And there's a couple more images at the back here. So yeah, I love this set, honestly. No notes, as the cool kids say these days. I think it's brilliant, and I had a great time going through it. And I do think that my enjoyment of the set, not a huge part of it, but maybe like 15% of my enjoyment of this set came from the fact that I wasn't particularly jazzed up about getting into it. And just the continual surprise and getting excited to see the next one and the next one. So, Sirk in Germany, crossing my fingers for a second volume. I'm really intrigued now to see if we have a 305 somewhere. That'd be really cool. That's like a little Easter egg that they kind of left there. Like, oh, everyone's going to notice that there's a spine number 305 for like 6 months or whatever. Anyway, that's my discussion on the set. I loved it. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you've seen any of the films in the set, if you have the set. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. I don't think it's one people are talking about enough, and again, we get people moaning about all these kung fu movies that Eureka keep releasing, and they put out an incredible set like this, and it doesn't seem to be there's enough kind of conversation about it as I think there should be. But that's pretty much all I got to say for now. I really hope, I'm crossing my own fingers for myself here, that I do make the full in-depth review. And you might be watching this now going, oh my god, I can't listen to you talk about those films for another second, let alone for another hour or so, and an extended review. But I'd like to include clips and stuff, and there's a lot more observations I've made and notes that I've made about the films that I'd like to get to. So I really hope I get to do that and have the time to do that. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.